Welcome back to another episode of Life After Sunday. Mike,
Happy Friday.
Rowdy, how are you guys today?
Doing amazing. It's Friday.
Great. I'm great. I'm coming up on 2 weeks off, and my son's coming into town, so it's good.
Yeah, you're doing
Life
well.
is good.
Yeah, we got Jake coming home today. Monica's been out of town all week. She's driving back right now, so it's going to be a good week.
Life is good. We have a special, very special guest on the show today, the mayor of Atkins, Arkansas, Mr. Rowdy Sweet.
Man, we got the big dog in the house right now. Did
Oh,
you make
yeah.
sure that you weren't violating any city ordinances before you got here?
I told him to turn his head when he before he came down the driveway. No, but we're good. We're glad to have you on the show. Before we dig into Rowdy's story and what we got to talk to him about, I want to give a quick update on our Christmas movie bracket. The votes are in, and we have some movies moving on to round 2. So round 1, Elf is moving on.
Of course.
Yeah.
It beat A Christmas Story 12-2.
Jim Carrey, I mean, it's the best.
Not Jim Carrey.
Are you serious?
I'm 100% serious.
Grinch?
Elf.
Oh, I got confused. Those are my favorite movies.
Will Ferrell.
Will Ferrell. Yeah.
Okay.
We actually watched it last night. It's
Yeah.
hilarious. It never gets old.
It never gets old.
So, Rowdy, what's your vote on that? Elf or Christmas Story?
Elf.
Elf. Elf is moving on. Second, it was Frosty versus A White Christmas. What's your vote on that?
Is Frosty the cartoon one?
Yeah, I like the
I'd say
OG one.
Frosty, yeah.
Frosty.
Hey, and I noticed on the movie thing, you didn't have when that second Frosty one when he comes back for the summer. I watched that as a kid. Remember when he melted?
Yeah, that was.
I had to have therapy for that.
Yeah.
That's great.
As a kid, that's tragic.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Frosty's moving on for a vote, 10 votes to 3 votes on White Christmas. Thirdly, we have Grinch versus Four Christmases. What do you got
Oh
on that?
man. We talking about the Grinch, the real Grinch,
The Jim Carrey.
Yeah,
I
the
like
Jim Carrey Grinch.
Yeah, I like the Grinch.
And the Grinch is moving on.
Oh, yeah.
11-3.
Yeah.
Scrooged versus Deck the Halls.
Deck the Halls. Is that
I haven't seen either one.
Stallone or not Stallone? Schwarzenegger or no?
That's Jingle All the Way. Where they have the little action figure.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't remember who's in Deck the. I haven't watched it much, but
That means it's not good.
I can't decide on that one. What was the
Scrooged
other one?
is the Bill Murray, the 80s
that's
movie.
pretty good. I hadn't seen that in a while though.
Yeah.
That's not a regular one I make sure I watch every Christmas.
Well, so Scrooged is actually moving on, 9-4. Next, we got Christmas Vacation or Polar Express.
Polar Express.
I like them both, but I'd have to go with Vacation.
The Vacation is moving on, 10-3.
Oh, wow. Surprise.
When Brookie was a kid, she'd say, "I want to watch Polar Express Train."
Yeah, yeah.
You know, the first time I watched Polar Express, I was like, it was creepy and dark looking.
Yeah.
At first, and I was like, "Man, this is a dark movie," and then
Yeah.
it takes a while for you to kind of.
It's got a good storyline.
It does.
It's a good movie. Home Alone versus the controversial Die Hard.
Oh, Home Alone's a classic, but Die Hard's good. That's a hard. I'd say Home Alone.
Home Alone moves on 12-1. And the only vote Die Hard got was from Eric Duval.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I don't care for Die Hard for a Christmas movie.
Next we have Christmas Carol versus Jingle All the Way.
I haven't seen either one.
I'd say Jingle All the Way. Christmas Carol, I hadn't seen it in a while.
That's like where the ghost of Christmas past and Christmas future. And
Scary. No, it's ghosts.
well, A Christmas Carol moves on 7-5. That was a close one. We have Miracle on 34th Street or Rudolph, the original Rudolph. Rudolph moves on 10-1.
Yeah.
Christmas with the Cranks or Santa Claus? That's the Tim Allen
I like
Santa
Christmas
Claus.
with the Cranks, and
That movie
my
is
daughter loves
hilarious.
that. And I've seen it so many times, I know every line, but it's still funny.
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Christmas with the Cranks moves on 6-3. And finally, we have One Magic Christmas versus It's a Wonderful Life.
I don't. Yeah, I'd have to say It's a Wonderful Life, but I don't remember what the other one is. I don't guess I've seen.
My wife told me I needed to add that in, and I think it's a '80s Christmas movie. So that is It's a Wonderful Life moves on 9-0.
Oh, it got smoked.
Smoked. So moving on is Elf, Frosty, The Grinch, Scrooged, Christmas Vacation, Home Alone, Christmas Carol, Rudolph, Christmas with the Cranks, and It's a Wonderful Life. So be on the lookout for our post. I'll make a new post with the winners moving on in the bracket, and we'll continue and crown the best Christmas movie.
Good. I like it.
Mike, why don't you give Rowdy a proper introduction?
Before we start, we're Bobless today. So, Bob, thinking about you. He's in Vegas enjoying himself.
His anniversary trip.
Yep. He got to see the Sphere, and he's at the National Finals Rodeo. I think he's flying back today.
He went to George Strait concert, too.
Man, he had himself.
Looks like he was eating some good food.
He had a great time up there. It's kind of jealous, especially of that Sphere. It looked amazing.
That
from the
Sphere looks
photos.
amazing.
Yeah. So,
Bob, we miss you. Come back.
Yep, we'll see you next week. But we got my good friend Rowdy here. Rowdy, I've known. We used to live down the street from each other.
Yep.
We've known each other from pre-driving days, spending the night at your house. We worked at the pickle plant together, and I remember I'd spend the night with him, and the night before we would just kind of wake up and think about the horrible 12-hour day we were going to have the next day. So I had to net pickles. What was your job?
Same.
Wasn't that awful?
Yeah, those ladies yelling at you all day.
Yes. And
Need
remember,
pickles over here.
they had a clock the size of like that cold storage building in Russellville, you know?
They should have just took the clock down.
And you would watch the tick, just seconds tick by. And it was 12 hours of just netting cucumbers.
And I weighed about 130 pounds, and I was netting cucumbers. That thing was huge. It was heavy.
Explain to people what is that netting cucumbers?
So they bring in a big vat of cucumbers floating in water.
Massive.
Yeah, a forklift.
Yeah.
And then the lady, you would put them up, you would lift them up out of the vat and onto this big metal tray, and then this lady would just literally take each cucumber, load it into the machine, it would cut it into spears. And that's what you did for 12 hours at $4.
You was wet.
Was it? Yeah, wet. Your feet were wet, and you had a hairnet on. It was awful.
Yeah.
So that's probably why we both ended up in the military.
Oh, I knew that after that summer, Rowdy wasn't doing factory work.
That's what I said. I said,
I had to get out of there.
No, that is for guys like me that are ADD and I always got to be moving and going. That was mental torture right there, man. So, but yeah,
I couldn't work in a factory.
I couldn't either.
I would go absolutely insane. I got to be out moving around.
It's certain personalities can do it, and that ain't me. But Rowdy is the mayor of Atkins. How long you been mayor?
Since 2019.
Since 2019. He's also been a deputy with the Pope County Sheriff's Department now for 27 years?
Yeah. I've got 30 years in. I'm on the drop, but I bought some Navy time to further me in retirement. So I can work 8 more years there. So.
Nice.
Yep.
What is your rank right now?
Captain.
And what would be the next rank up from that? Is that the highest you can
Chief
go?
or sheriff, and I don't want nothing to do with that.
Yeah. No thanks.
I don't want to get involved in politics in Russellville.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's tough. And right now you're the jail administrator, so you run the jail.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll get into that.
Yeah.
You joined the Navy. How old were you?
18 in 92.
18.
Yeah.
Okay, so cool story there. Your mom paid for my plane ticket to go up there and watch you graduate. That was the first time. And, Chicago. We flew into Midway. I'd never flown on a plane before.
Yeah.
And I remember watching you graduate, and I thought, Navy looks way too intense. It's freezing cold up there. There was snow on the ground. Y'all were wearing these giant, I don't know what trench coat looking things.
Yeah, those pea coats,
Yeah, and I was like, okay.
They charged us $300 for those. We didn't get them free. Our first paycheck, all that subtracted.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
That's such a military thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, when I saw you graduate, I was like, okay, note to self, I don't want to go in the Navy. This looks a little too intense for me,
Right.
and it's cold.
Right.
He's married to Nicole. They've been married for
In April, next April will be 30 years.
30 years.
Yeah.
And you met her on Whidbey Island,
Yeah.
is it close to Seattle?
Yeah, it's a ferry ride from Seattle.
Okay.
Yeah.
And she moved back here with you to the wonderful state of Arkansas. And
Right.
y'all have got 2 kids, Lily and Parker.
Right.
And you mentioned Parker. Parker was the smart one of the group because he went Air Force.
Right.
Like
I
me.
told him, I've told everybody if I've talked to kids in a youth group or parents that want to know how they're going to go, I said if they can score high enough to get in the Air Force, because we worked with the Air Force at Nellis Air Force Base there in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And when I seen their base and the per diem we got, and I said, this is what I should have done.
Yeah, yeah.
So anybody I've given advice to, if you can get in the Air Force, go to the Air Force.
That's what I told him. I was like, we get paid the same.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, if you're in the Navy, you did a much tougher job than I did, Marines, but we got paid the same.
Exactly.
And I always tell people, you want to move to a place, you want to go to the military that has golf courses on all bases.
Yeah.
Okay?
No doubt.
That's-
Better
that's-
food, better barracks.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the clue flag when you
Yeah.
got golf courses.
Yeah.
So we want to get into your life. We'll go on and talk. We'll talk about being mayor and jail administrator and stuff
Right.
like that. But you graduated from Atkins in '92.
Yes.
Played basketball, and then when you went into the Navy, what was your first land duty station? Was it Whidbey Island?
Yeah.
And what was your job on land?
When I joined, I went. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, so you could join the Navy and then kind of pick your job after you got in, and that's what I did. I knew I wanted. I went into the aviation side. I didn't want to be on a ship all the time, so I did a little research, found I wanted to be into aviation. So when I got up to Whidbey Island, I went through some training. I was with the VA squadron. They had A6 bombers, and I was there for maybe 2 months, did some training, get familiar with the aircraft. Then I was shipped overseas I went from Philadelphia to Bahrain, and then from Bahrain, well, I went to Diego Garcia it's a little island in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah, and that's in the Atlantic, right?
Yeah, very little island. I mean, I was there for about 10 days, then flew to Bahrain, and flew out to the aircraft carrier, landed on there on I think it was called a C2.
You got to land on an aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
That's a C2 Greyhound.
Yeah, so I got to land on it, and I'm telling you, they lowered the back of that plane. You know, it's a big bay. It lowers down, and they walked us out on that flight deck, and flight ops were going on. And I was looking around, my eyes wide open. I thought, it'll be a month before I'm up here. I was up there in a week. It's dangerous.
Yeah,
so you're
yeah.
attached to a guy, you know, when you're first up there. So yeah, I was out there pretty quick, and it's dangerous. But you know, after a couple of weeks, like anything else, it becomes natural. But it was exciting. Yeah.
So what was the aircraft carrier?
I was on the USS Nimitz for 2 deployments, the Persian Gulf, and then the USS Carl Vinson for my last one in '99. Most of our other deployments, you go to different bases, and we'd go to Miramar, California, and different bases to train with other squadrons, because the A6s and EA6Bs were in Washington, and then down in San Diego, Coronado Island, different places, there were fighter jets, the Hornets and Tomcats, and we all assigned to the Nimitz, and that's where we'd meet. We'd fly down to Coronado Island and head out for your 6-month cruise from Coronado Island.
Now, did you when you landed on the carrier, what was that like? Did they slam it down pretty violent?
Yeah. I remember when they turned to turn into the aircraft to get their alignment, I just remember that thing going sideways. And then when you're facing the opposite way in the aircraft, so when you stop, the resting gear stops you. But yeah, it was something. We couldn't see anything.
Yeah,
We were looking backwards. There's no little windows, but you couldn't see out them.
So you were used to the soft airliner landings,
yeah.
and all of a sudden you slam down on that carrier deck and stop.
Of course, you've got the you're strapped in, but
Did you ever launch off one?
no, I never did that.
Oh man,
Never got to do that.
Was it a pretty like abrupt stop when you
Yeah.
got on there?
Yeah, it
when you got
was.
touchdown.
It was pretty abrupt.
What specifically was your job with the Prowlers?
So when you first start out, you're a plane captain. You wear brown shirts. That's a brown shirt on the deck, and you're in charge of pre-flight, post-flight inspections of the aircraft. You check everything on there before they take off. You check the cockpit for certain things, and you carry around the tie-down chains. When they land, you've got these chains wrapped around you to tie it down, and we carried a thing called a Bowser. It's basically to change oil. It's a big metal box, and you lug them things around because you change the oil every time they land.
Oh man!
And so you'd do that pre-flight, post-flight, and we'd give because you got to hook up an air hose to these aircraft to get them started.
Yep,
An
air
hose.
start.
So we would do that, and then the pilot would get up there, and you give them all these signals to check everything, and then you pass them off to the yellow shirts that you see if you're watching any of the shows or online or something. The yellow shirts are assigned to that aircraft carrier, and they direct the flight deck. After we pass them off to them, they get them to the catapult and shoot them off the deck from there. And then when they land, they direct them over to us, and we take them over from there and park them and stuff.
Oh wow!
So it was crazy at first. I mean, you do training and you see people, and you can't walk in front of the intake of those things.
Yeah, you've seen videos.
It's bad.
They literally look like
You
a
will
dummy.
disappear.
Yeah, they get sucked right into the engine.
And the last thing you check a lot of times is that the I forget what it's called, but right at the front wheels you check. That's where they hook the catapult. So you got to check it, make sure it turns right, and then you send them off.
So, would you say, having experienced it, it's not quite as glorious as they make it on Top Gun when they're showing all of them?
Oh yeah, it's not.
Yeah, showing them carrying the change.
I mean, it was 12 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Every day,
And you're in the
nonstop.
Persian Gulf. It's hot. You're wearing a turtleneck.
And it's humid.
Yeah,
You're not in the desert.
You're wearing a turtleneck because of fire. In case you want all the protection you can, So you got the vest for if you fall off the deck, it's your life vest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
So-
sure your clothes are probably fire retardant. So
Yeah,
they're not, They
exactly.
don't breathe well.
No, they don't breathe well.
And
Hot.
at any point during your cruise or any of them, did you ever think, I'd rather be at the pickle plant?
No, I still didn't. No. I was 18 and it was just exciting.
Oh,
Now there were nights, in the military, you're away from family, and especially when you first got on that aircraft carrier from Coronado Island, we're all sitting there. Everybody's kind of quiet because you just left your family. My first one, I was single, so it was all new, but I was nervous because a guy from Arkansas, I ain't seen the world, I've seen
Right.
nothing. So everybody's just kind of quiet because you have 6 months to be out at sea.
That's brutal.
6 months. Now we would be out at, if you're out 10, 20 days, and then we would port in Jabal Ali, and they had a fenced off area in country that they would bring a bunch of vendors in. Of course, in the Navy, there'd be a semi full of beer.
That's awesome.
Depending on what's going on in country, sometimes we wouldn't be able to leave that area, but sometimes you'd be able to. A lot of the officers that had money, they'd go golf. I didn't golf. I still don't golf. I just never got into it. But they would go golf because they would go to Dubai. And, Dubai wasn't what it is now in 92, 93, or 95, but now it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But we'd go to Jabal Ali and you'd see some things in country over there, and it was different.
Yeah, I bet when that ramp lowered and you came out on that aircraft carrier, you probably had that same moment where you go, I'm from Atkins, Arkansas. How did I end up in the Middle East?
Exactly.
It's that moment where you're like, wow.
And then you get, as we're out, we would go to Thailand, Singapore, Hong Kong, different places for port. We'd be there 10, 15 days. So you get to see a lot of third world countries. Finally, in 99, I got to go to Australia in Hobart and Tasmania.
Wow.
So it was never the plan for me to. I was on shore duty. I stayed in for 3 more years because I told my wife, I said, I'll do shore duty. You know, I was doing some college classes, and shore duty's easy.
Right.
I worked at a Bomb X,
Like
kept
the Air
records.
Force. Like
yeah,
the Air
It was
Force.
Air Force full time. Yeah. I kept records for bombs. You know, maintenance on bombs, scheduled stuff, and then I got a call at 4 o'clock one morning, less than a year from me getting out of the Navy, because my plan was to move back, and Nicole knew that, and I got a call from my detailer, said, hey, this squadron's shorthanded. They need, because at the time I was an aviation administrator. Because I thought, I don't want to be an electrician. I don't want to go to work at Boeing. So let me do something that I can maybe use when I get out, and computer stuff. So I went into aviation administration to keep records and different things. Well, they were shorthanded because a couple years ago they'd kicked people out finally that weren't in shape. So he said, you got to go back to sea.
That's
And I was like,
brutal.
hey, I'm getting out. They don't care. I said, I'm
don't.
going to college. They don't care.
They don't
So
care.
That was the worst call, man.
Oh, that's brutal.
So I had to report to this new squadron.
New people.
Luckily, I got to go to Australia. But that 6 months was probably rougher than any of them.
Yeah,
because I wasn't planned.
Well, it's like if you're running, you know, like in basic, and you see the finish line.
Yeah.
And then they say, and all of a sudden you make a left turn, and
Yeah.
you know you're going another round, and
Yeah.
it just destroys you because you
Yeah.
had thought you were done.
And what got me is that's when I decided I'm definitely getting out of the Navy, because I'd had friends. You know, you make close friends in the military, but you always know at some point they're probably going to leave, and you may never see them again. But you form close bonds because you're out at sea for 6 months, and I seen several had kids born when they were out there, and I said, I'm not for that. I can't do that.
What was communication like? Because this is nowadays. I mean, I saw the other day they put a Starlink on a ship.
Yeah.
You know, what was it like back then? Was it just letters?
Well, in 92 on my first cruise, it was just letters.
That's so like ancient now.
Yeah, the helicopter would come in and you'd see the yellow mail bags, and everybody's like, yeah. And I remember I wasn't married at the time, and I would have buddies that were married, and they'd write their wife a mean letter. I can't believe you hadn't wrote me. I'm so mad. And then the mail comes in, it's months old.
Oh, no.
And he's like, oh, what did I do? I said, why did you knew the mail didn't get? So he wrote her a mean letter. So communication was tough then.
Yeah, it
now,
was.
We had phones on the ship, like pay phones almost looked like. You'd work 12 hours, you'd get off, go see how long the line was, sit there. But the way that phone system worked, you could be on the phone, and if the ship had to turn due to flight ops or something, bam, your call drops. So it was rough, you know. But then in '95, we were able to communicate almost daily with an email type system, and then same in '99, it was basically email. You still couldn't call and talk that much, but you could email daily, so it got easier. Yeah. And now, my son, now in the military, you can talk daily.
FaceTime.
We send Snapchats daily. I mean,
yeah, because like in those days, you wouldn't see your loved one's face for 6 months.
right.
Now,
And if I called my mom and she wasn't home, because there was
done.
no cell phone.
no,
It'd be the old
the
why can't
answer machine. Yep.
Hey mom, I'm in.
And then they're crushed because they missed your call.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
so it was
brutal.
tougher. That's why I try to tell my son, I said, you got it made. Man.
Oh, they all got it made today. I mean, yeah, the ops
Communication is big though.
Yeah.
It's so much bigger.
Talk about a little bit about living, like on the ship like your living quarters and stuff.
Well, it took me a while when I first got there because getting around a ship is very difficult because the guys assigned to that ship, they know every in and out, every ladder well, hallway. But if you took a wrong turn, that ship's got 5,000 people in it. I moved from a city with 3,000 to a ship with 5,000 people, and there's stuff you would see people you'd never seen before, and if you took a wrong turn, it took a while to learn how to get everywhere. And our beds were basically, I'm serious, about the size of this table, and you were stacked three. They were made three to use on a shelf. Like you had 3 people, and you had about enough room where you could walk through, and there was guys on this side and this side. and community shower like a gym, and you had to be quiet because you got guys working days and nights and different times. And we had TV on there, and it was just a continuous loop of the same movies. I knew every word to Dumb and Dumber, the first one. I mean, there was just a loop because we didn't have any live TV.
Wow.
So, but you would, the day consisted of you. I got lucky somehow. I never worked nights on the ship. I was always on days. But you'd work 12 hours a day. We'd go to the gym. We'd go eat and go to bed, do it again the next day. That's kind of what our routine was. And they had a big, nice gym on there, but and I worked out a lot because you didn't have nothing else to do. And
Right.
We had some frogmen on there, and we did some workouts with them in the hangar bay and stuff.
Hey, did you ever do the morale thing where they let y'all swim off the carrier?
I never got to swim.
Okay, I saw that. I've seen some where they will do a morale day and they'll put the nets
Now we had
down.
what we had one time. I don't remember if it was 95 or 93 now. Taiwan and China were pointing missiles at each other. So we had to stay out at sea for over 50 days. And if you're out for over 50 days, they do what's called a Still Beach picnic, and they call it it's a beer day. But you get, and I was 19 or 20 at the time, and you get 2 beer tickets. And if you got a buddy that didn't drink, you couldn't take his ticket. You get 2 beers. But this old timer that was on there, he had been on many cruises. He told me, and this guy from Alaska, he said, if you volunteer to go on the work crew, you got to bring the beer up from the bottom of the ship up the top. And all this beer would be put in these engine cans. You just picture cutting a trash can in half. These engines set in a full trash can, huge, maybe the length of this garage. And they'd fill that up with ice, and that's where you'd throw all the beer. Well, he said, if you throw beer in there and it busts open, then I guess you got to drink it. So I volunteered to do that. Now I worked all day. Me and this guy from Alaska, but we got to drink a little more beer.
Nice.
But that was the only Still Beach picnic, and you got the people that already knew would bring kiddie pools, and you're just sitting on the beach. We got the anchors out. You're out in the sun drinking beer and just hanging out because you was out longer, and we couldn't go back eat pork because there was something going on.
A Still Beach picnic.
Yeah, that's what they call it.
Did you have to go through like any extra training to go back to sea? Did you have to do anything like that? Or?
No, you just when we were basically what you would do when you were on shore duty. You're on sea duty and you're back at the base. You're training and going to like Miramar, California, and different places to train to go to sea.
Yep.
Is what you're doing. You're getting ready to go, because when you're on shore duty, it's working 12 hours a day constantly, and you're preparing to go out to sea when you go on these deployments to different places.
I see this now. Did they do this back then? Like I always, because I read all this stuff. Like before an aircraft carrier goes to sea, they will go out just a little bit offshore and do a workup.
Yeah.
Where basically the pilots are getting certified to land. The crews are all basically it's a practice run.
Right.
And they get certified to deploy. Did they do that back then?
Yeah, they did short deployments, and you would take just a portion of your squadron. Certain plane captains, certain avionics guys, maintenance guys would go, and they would take just a small number of birds, and then they'd be operating out here, and you'd still be operating on land.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was. They were constantly getting ready, and on the island where our naval air base was, there were no ships where I was stationed, and there wasn't a different part of Washington State. In Bremerton, I think, is where the ships were. But on Whidbey Island, we had just an air base. There was no planes, and we had down on the south end of the island, well, kind of in the middle of the island, there was a landing strip where the pilots would do mock, like they were catching the resting gear.
Oh yeah.
They would fly from the base. They could practice there and fly back. It was kind of, I never seen it from the sky, but it's kind of supposed to be set up like the deck of an aircraft carrier.
See, I didn't know that. I've learned through reading that a lot of I always just thought all the airplanes were on the ship and that's where they stayed. But what I learned is they're actually like at Whidbey
Yeah.
and here and there. When they go deploy, then they gather them all
They all
up
gather.
and then they get on the ship.
Yeah,
So that's kind of neat.
that's correct.
What about one last thing on living conditions? You mentioned before we went on that you barely had enough room sleeping to turn on your side.
Yeah, you were stuck in a shelf. You know, it's about like that, and you had a reading lamp, so you could sit there and read, kind of like this. And of course, if your buddy just got out of the shower, you want to make sure you got your curtain closed because they got to change right. There's just a little alleyway, so you had curtains for privacy, and you could sleep. I found that my first cruise, obviously brand new, didn't get to pick where I slept. The next one, you get the top because there's no top on the top bunk.
You got more room.
You can set straight up. So that's where I got the next two I was on. You get the top bunks. You've got
moving up in the world.
Moving up in the world.
That's a little better.
Yeah, it's a little better, especially if you got close to an air vent. It's much better.
Oh yeah, you get some air movement. Is there a height restriction to be able to serve on an aircraft carrier?
I think not just on the aircraft carrier. I think maybe pilots and different things, and maybe subs, but not in the aircraft carrier.
See, I went on the one that's in San Diego. I think is it the Midway?
I think so.
The museum, and I did a tour, and the whole tour was me.
Oh
doing
yeah,
this.
yeah.
Because I like even in the galley, when I stood up straight, if I stood up straight, I was like this.
Right.
Like, I couldn't function.
Yeah.
Like, in this place.
Yeah, yeah.
It's tight.
It's tight.
So so you got out. You started off with the sheriff's department. You started off in the jail, right?
Right.
How long were you in the jail before you?
I worked the jail for about a year and a half. It was a smaller. It's still there. It was built in 1983, and it was smaller then. But I started there. I worked for about a year and a half in the jail.
And then you went on to travel the backwoods of Pope County.
Yeah, I started in the jail about a year and a half. I went to the academy in 2001 and became a deputy. I worked the streets for about 4 years, and then I got lucky the way everything timed out is there were some older guys retiring, and I'd always wanted to be an investigator because that's what my grandpa did for the state police. Mm-hmm. And I was able to move into there, and I worked in investigation, I think about 10 years, and I was chief investigator for several years of that. And then when Sheriff Jones took over, I told him, I said, I'm ready to do something different, and I think I can do because the jail administrator, you got to deal more with budgeting, lawsuits, and,
yes,
and
lots
inmates,
of lawsuits.
So as a jail administrator, you don't necessarily work the jail. You need to go back there every now and then and be seen, but you want to also stay out of the middle of everything so you can solve any problems that come up.
Without being a party to the problem.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's more about budgeting and stuff like that.
What is because I think, a lot of the folks who listen to us, they're local, and they probably don't, because I don't know, and I figure they don't know. What is the capacity of the jail?
Right now, our max capacity is 172.
And what are you regularly at lately?
180 or more. Yeah.
+8?
We are, yeah. Most all jails are.
You're right.
They're all over. Like right now, we have a plumbing deal we're fixing. We're having to get a few out, and the prison's taking some this coming Monday. We usually always have 30 to 40 that have been sentenced, waiting to go to the prison.
Right.
But they have the same problem. They're full. They got to wait till some leave, and then they bring more because you got 75 counties. And you got jails like Pulaski County with over 1,000, Washington County 700, Benton County's growing. Their jail population's growing like crazy too, because their population's growing. That place is going. Rogers and all that up there, it's huge.
Well, I think that's something that surprised me working in Texas was, I thought the county jail was, just they held them there till they went to trial, and then once they went off to prison. And just like here, they have people serving their prison sentence, based off factors and various things. And they leave them in the county jail to serve a lot of their sentence because there's no room in the prisons.
Yeah.
And you say the jail was built in '83?
Yeah, there's one portion of it It was built in 1983, and another, they moved over from. Matter of fact, the jail used to be in the top floor of the courthouse. I don't know if you remember my one grandma. We'd go to her house every now and then in Russellville, Betty Sweet.
Mm-hmm.
She was a dietitian at the jail. I don't know if
They
you
had
remember
a
that.
dietitian at the jail.
Yeah,
That's high
So-
roller stuff.
Hey, when I was little, in the courthouse, the jail was in the top floor of the courthouse, the old bars.
Yeah.
I don't know. They may have held 10, probably more like 6 or 8. She lived up there in an apartment. I'd go up there and spend the night with her.
That's kind of cool.
And she had a little kitchen,
wild.
and she would cook their meals. That's what she did. And she had an apartment and lived up there. Yeah, and I would sit at that window where that eagle is on the courthouse and look out that window.
See, that's neat. That's cool history.
Yeah, so then it moved from there over to where it's at now in 1983, and that part holds about, the old part, we call it the old part, is West Hall is what we call it. It holds about 100. And then in 2001, what we call the new part now, which is 23, 24 years old, holds 40 per pod. It's a more open bay, like a military barracks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of funny. I was going to ask how y'all do your food, because at our jail, it was funny when I first started. They would literally had like 2 huge freezers, and they would bring in TV dinners,
Right.
and that was their food. So literally, the jailers, when I worked at jail, we'd go throw them in the microwave or the whatever it was, oven, and make them TV dinners.
Yeah.
And so finally they got modern, and now Cisco delivers
Right.
food, and it's modern.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was funny that
Oh,
they
yeah.
were eating TV dinners. Has y'all always had like a professional model like that since you've been there?
Since I've been there, I started that job in 2016, and at that time we had a planned meal that the county had employees like jailers that moved into the kitchen position, and they prepared the meals that was planned by a dietitian, and the food came from like Cisco or somewhere like that. Well, now the majority of your jails now have a third company, and this one's called Tiger Commissary, Tiger Food Services. They have their employees in our jail. They work the kitchen. We don't have anything to do with. We pay them basically.
It's a contract.
Contract. We pay. It costs about $7,000 a week to feed the inmates, and
See, that's
and the way it
crazy.
works is
Crazy.
it's the food's planned by a state certified dietitian, and the state requires about 2,300 calories per day per inmate, and we serve about 2,800.
That's
So, but it's about 7,000 a week.
See, that's crazy, because most people just have no idea,
Oh, yeah.
the inner workings. And another problem we had was we don't have because it's a temporary holding facility. We didn't have a doctor, and so now every person you arrest, they know to claim medical will usually delay or get them out of whatever they're doing, and it put us in a terrible position, because you would, back in the early days, they'd be like, they're faking.
Yeah.
Forget about them. And then we got wiser and realized we're fixing to get ourselves sued.
Right.
And so now I got to the point where, like, if I was a supervisor, and I'm like, look, if they say they're sick, I'm not going to take it, call an ambulance.
Yeah.
And they hated it. They come down there, deal with a person who's faking, put them through the whole rigmarole.
Right.
And so I'm sure, being a county jail, y'all have a doctor or doctors
We
on
have
staff.
a medical company. We've got an actual little clinic in the jail. It's got a waiting room, an office. It's got a doctor's bed and everything. Like when we go to the clinic, it's got everything needed, and we have a contract with a company. It's $35,000 a month.
What?
We have 3. Yes. that's-
$1,000 a month.
No wonder we didn't have a doctor. That's too much
Jeez.
money.
We have 3 nurses on staff that work for this company. So, you got 180 people. There's all kinds of medication. Used to, the jailers
Old school.
gave the medication, which is a terrible idea.
Yes.
And so when the sheriff took over, we got one of these companies. And we used to have a doctor that was a local doctor paid, and he would come once a week. And then if we had any other problems, they would go to the hospital. Well, this is cut down on us transporting them because everything's in-house. And obviously, if there's an emergency, we take them to the emergency room. But this contract saves the county, like you were talking about, lawsuits, stuff like that, because there's a lot of people. The biggest problem right now in law enforcement detention work is there's all kinds of illnesses, mental illnesses, and things that people need help with, and certain medication that they need to have to come down off of stuff they shouldn't be on.
Right.
You got Suboxone type medication that helps them get off meth and different things that they give them daily to help them stay off of it. So, but yeah, those medical contracts are expensive, but it saves.
It's a medically
You have to have
necessary thing, and though it costs a ton of money, it will save you in the long run from lawsuits. And it's just people don't realize what a lawsuit, and I mean the jail, when you go down to the jail, it's like we all were like, this is a lawsuit waiting to happen. I mean, from using force to illnesses. I mean, and I wanted to get in and out of there as fast as possible.
Right.
So that's, what is y'all's budget for just the jail, to run the jail?
About 4.4 million.
4.4 million.
About 200. I even wrote it down here so I would remember. I put about 2.8 of that is salaries, because we've got like 40. We have 48 people working in the detention center. So.
What has that stayed steady through the years? About that, since you added the medical stuff, has that stayed pretty steady?
Yeah, the medical goes up a little every year, a certain percentage,
Like
small
everything.
percentage every year. Because all the expenses always go up, but it's stayed close. The main thing that goes up is salaries, and then the problem we're running into now is this building's old, and it's needing a lot of repair.
Do y'all have plans for a new jail?
Yeah, we've got in May of next year there'll be a special election for a sales tax for public safety. It'll be a 3/4 sales tax, and it'll be just for public safety for the jail and 911. And nobody wants more taxes,
Right.
but when you talk about it, I mean, if somebody else has a better idea, bring it. I mean, let us know. But I've been around this business for over 25 years, and the thing about sales tax, you listen to we have a great treasurer in Polk County, Larry Holman, and he puts numbers together, and I'm probably wrong on percentages, but when you have a sales tax, if you're using a sales tax to pay for something, it's not just being paid for by me and you that live here. If you use a millage, then that's just us. Nobody passing through or visiting is paying for it.
Right.
A sales tax is paid, over half or a little less than half is people that are traveling through here, going to the gas stations, going wherever, whatever reason they may be here. But that's what we need to pass in May to build a new jail. And the plans right now are 400-man jail to hold 400.
Smart.
And when you're talking about this, people say, oh, they just may want new offices or they want a new building. Well, I probably won't. By the time I've got 8 years, and that thing, it'll take a little while to get built. So I may be in it for a little bit. But the current sheriff, he won't even step foot in it. It's more, and if you actually listen to people talk, and it's in my mayor position and other position, we can't put people in jail that are just being a nuisance. Maybe someday they're just having a bad day and they're going around messing with people's stuff or stealing a lawnmower. Well, we can't put them in jail. There's no room. Mm-hmm. It's not good for the community to not be able to do that, because what you do is, if you can put them in jail for something small, maybe they won't keep committing a crime and decide, maybe I need to stop this before I step up to this next level.
Right.
That's the way I look at it, and it also would allow us, there's a lot of programs you can have in detention centers, because we're short-term. Prison's where they're going to be for a while.
Right.
People don't normally spend that long at a detention center. Now, right now, we have churches come in, we have AA meetings, we have a classroom where until COVID hit, we did GED classes for them. That we had a room full of about 10 computers, and they would go in there and try to get their GED and things of that nature. But with the population as it is, we don't have the room to do a lot of special programs. But that's something that's needed. And with the mental problems that are more used to, when I was on the street, there wasn't as many. But now there's a lot of people that come to jail that need mental help.
Yeah, it's off the chart
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those programs are huge, and I think it's huge too, allowing people, ministers, churches to come in and be able to share the gospel with these guys. And I've got to do that a few times, and I've done it here, and I've also done it in prison in Little Rock,
Pine Bluff.
No,
One of the prisons in many places.
How many prisons we got?
There's several. I don't remember.
Several. I thought there was just one in Pine
what's that
Bluff.
one right out of England?
Yeah. I don't remember the name of it.
Anyway, and it's like a life-changing experience.
yeah.
If anybody gets to do that, I encourage you to do that. But I think that's needed.
Yeah.
And I thank y'all for allowing.
We have it's called
to
a
do that.
multi-purpose room. It's a little classroom, and we've even got one of those. What's a big blue horse trough where they do baptisms in there and stuff.
Oh,
so,
cool. They do baptisms.
Yeah, they do baptisms.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So it looks like y'all are thinking ahead, because when I hear 400, you're thinking ahead. And
And the way they build these jails now, they call them pinwheels, or you can call them whatever you want, but you build a building, and then you have a circle over here with a tower in the middle, and they've already bought the acreage, 20-something acres. It allows you to add another 200 through the years. You have space
Smart.
to add on where you're kind of adding a separate building, but it's attached to a hallway or something like that. So
well, a lot of administrators in city, county, they always go cheap, and then they regret it. Like, soon as our police station was supposed to be a full 2 stories on a U shape, and they got cheap at the end and cut off the legs. Those are 1 story, and just the front's 2 story. And the day we moved in, it was too small.
right.
And so that's good that they're thinking ahead like that, and hopefully the voters will vote for that, because it's one of those things that's necessary. It's not fun. It's not
a fun thing. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants
Nope.
to worry about jail. But you've seen the places in the news that don't take public safety serious, and you just can't do that.
That's what I was going to mention, is the problem you're starting to run into because of your overcrowding is the very reason we had the problems we had in Houston, because all these petty crimes always lead to something else, and that's your chance to stop it and get it early. And so shoplifting became, because they would just kick them right out. They would just, as soon as they'd come in, they'd process them and they're back out. And so there's no deterrent. And then we're going through all this paperwork, doing all this stuff, and it's just in and out, in and out, in and out. And the same thing, they break into 20 cars one night. Everybody's mad and upset. And before I'm done with the report, they're on the street again, because it's considered petty. It's misdemeanor.
Right.
So we want to be able to keep those folks locked up.
We can't even we don't have many misdemeanors at all.
See?
DWIs, domestic battery, we obviously hold those.
Yep.
Until they bond out. But like I said, somebody comes and steals your bad boy sitting over there. He may not spend a day in jail.
Like you're back at the house and you're still steaming, and let's say it's your neighbor and he's outside smoking a cigarette, and for that reason alone, it's worth the vote.
Yeah.
100%, I agree.
And I'm one thing when we talk about stuff like this, I don't want people to think that I'm all about putting people in jail, but I've worked there for over 25 years, and that place has been occupied every single day since I've been there. It hadn't stopped.
Well, I was just saying,
You know what I mean?
there hadn't been a day where
It's
where they're all empty. You mean like
Yeah.
on Christmas Day, it's not empty?
There's not a day that a toilet in there isn't flushed.
Right.
It's continuous,
And it will be always
Exactly.
like that. It's
Yeah.
never going to stop completely.
I don't think, people are always wanting to find the way to fix it. And I would be it'd be great if we could fix it and that people wouldn't commit crime. But I fully believe until the Lord returns, it's not stopping.
It's not going to
You
stop.
can't stop it. You can help people, and you can try to deter them from continuing a life of crime. But I've seen generations come into jail, people that my grandpa arrested, their
Yes.
grandkids. You want to stop that, obviously.
Well, and not to sound like a liberal, but you also have to have a humane. You got to have good facilities to humanely house
exactly.
the folks. And when you're overcrowded, it's rough living.
Yeah.
It's rough for the jailers.
Yeah.
It's hard to control. It's rough on the, you're not able to rehab.
Yeah.
There's a myriad of problems.
Exactly.
It's just not a good situation
Just
at all.
not
It's
good.
just
No.
a snowball effect,
No.
I think, when
Because
you're overcrowded.
I remind, when we do training, we remind all the detention officers, look, nobody that's here really wants to be here. Jail's inconvenient for them. It interrupts their entire life. So when they come through that door, their freedom's taken. We're here to take care of them while they're here.
That's just
And that's what we're there for. We're not there to punish them. They're just there till they go to court.
yep.
We're just their landlords till they get to where they're going. But yeah, it makes it tough when the facility's old. 'Cause
Yeah.
you don't have stuff that you can help the ones that want to be helped.
Yeah,
with,
yeah.
you
It's,
know.
like- it's one of those necessary evils, so
Exactly,
to speak. You know. Do you have anything else on the jail, Chris?
No, I think I'm good. I thank you for allowing, ministers and people
Yeah.
to come in. And I think that's, I've heard a lot of, we have some ladies from our church that actually help with the Bible study
Yeah.
on the women's side. And I've heard a lot of good stories
Yeah.
of things happening there.
It's,
So
on that same line, it's kind of crazy the way the world works now with lawsuits and stuff. We can't be involved in picking who comes, because you have people come in that may be, and I'm not making fun of it, but we've had them say, well, I'm a Viking. Well, all I can tell them is find your religious advisor and they can come visit you. We don't look for them.
Right.
Because then I've got to look for everybody. I'd
Yeah.
have to hire a full-time. We don't have a chaplain that's just for them, because then we would have to supply a chaplain for every type of religion that somebody says they are.
Right.
So it's a fine line, but we allow volunteers to come as long as we vet them and they don't have a bad background. Then that's you're good to go. So
Now let's go to Mayor, because obviously a lot of our local listeners
Right.
they live here in Atkins, and plus
Yeah.
it's just interesting to find out how being a mayor works.
I mean, it all starts with local politics.
Right.
And that's,
Well, I think it's cool that you actually ran, because first of all, it's tough to run
Yeah.
and then get scrutiny,
yeah.
and then as mayor, because being mayor is like being chief or like being a sergeant.
Oh, yeah.
No matter what you do, somebody's going to complain.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this is a chance to kind of educate the folks on how things work. One of the big things I always hear is, they're always like, well, how come we don't have this built or that built? And just tell the folks, how much land does the city own that's just open and ready for development?
Yeah, we don't have any.
Yeah.
The only, the city owns the land out by the pool that's with the pool, but that's not a lot of land. And then, that's about it. We own the Matthews Center. It's where we put the splash pad and stuff. But, yeah, we don't own land where the city can build anything.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that.
That ballpark was donated by a family way before I was born, and that's the city's property, but we've done a lot of stuff with it in the last few years. But
So yeah, a lot of people don't realize, like, we don't own like frontage road, and the cities don't typically own
No.
land.
no,
And then, like, for instance, how come I don't have a sidewalk?
right.
That you'll hear, well, why don't I have a sidewalk? And it's like, it's not that easy.
That's come up a lot, and we look into grants. The grants for sidewalks, they have to be, most of the grants, their wordage is like it has to be leading to a school for you to get money. But to get it done, you got to get an engineer. You can't just build a sidewalk.
Right.
We fixed some broken ones downtown, but the sidewalk, it's like, the business owner has some responsibility, but the city has some responsibility. But I remember sidewalks over when I used to live with my grandma over by Coach Jones' old tennis courts. I don't know if y'all remember where I'm talking about. Behind the school, there's a neighborhood. There's sidewalks that have looked the same way now as they did when I was little.
Right.
But the city, you know, we don't have the money to. Most of the time, when somebody builds a neighborhood, they either put them in or they don't.
Yes.
We try not to restrict. You know, the former mayor Jerry Don Barrett is head of the planning commission now, and we would rather not have so many restrictions on building a neighborhood than more restrictions, because you price people out of building.
Right.
You know, I lived right down here the street from where we are right now, and myself, Fletcher Shannon, when he lived down there, and maybe John or Virgil may have been here then, I think they were, and Jason Smith, and one or two others. We ended up paying $8,000 ourselves to have this road chip and sealed, and then the city took it over.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different things that play into it.
Yeah, they don't. That's something I realized when I lived in Houston, because I moved around like 7 times, because I would always build in a neighborhood, and the neighborhood would start to go down, and I'd have to move somewhere else, because that's the way a growing city is.
Yeah.
But the thing I noticed was the developer of the neighborhood is the one who puts in the sidewalks and does all that, and then they fund it through a special mud tax later, and the mud taxes are astronomical. Municipal utilities district, super expensive, but and like a sidewalk after the fact is just so super pricey that they don't realize it. What is the budget of Atkins, Arkansas?
It's about, we just approved the budget this Tuesday, and this year it is set at about 1.3 is what'll be the income, 1.3 million, and the expenditures I've got it about 1.2 right now.
See, and people that's
not a lot.
That's not a lot.
You know, and the way the city operates is 0.5 half-cent sales tax is what we get per month for sales tax to city general, and 1.5, well, there's a 2% sales tax in Atkins. 1.5 of that goes to bonds. In 2019, we had a special election for a 1.5% continuation sales tax. It wasn't a new one, and that was about $8 million for water and sewer and parks. It was split up about $3 million to sewer, a little over $2 million to water upgrades, and then only about 1.2 of it went to the park stuff, and that was for stuff that we had to do with the sewer system. And so the income from city sales tax a month is about $20,000. Then we get a portion, it's like 4.5% of the county income tax, and that's about $50,000. And then you have franchise tax and different things that pay in, but that's where those monies come from.
What do you happen to know? And I don't want to catch you off guard. What's the rough percentage of your budget that comes from property taxes in Atkins?
I wouldn't know off the top of my head.
Do y'all do get a portion from that, or does the county get it?
The county and a lot of the millage goes to schools, a big percentage of it.
Yeah. So,
and they had that election. It was several years ago when they built that new school.
Well, and a lot of what people don't realize here is like you're talking about, you know, the tax for the jail, or, you know, whatever tax we're needing to fund Atkins or the county. Now, Texas may not have a state income tax, but brother, they pull it out of you everywhere else. There are taxes. Like when I would get my tax bill for my home, it would like fill like half the page, and the school taxes were unbelievable.
Right.
And you got to think, like, if you're retired, you're paying for taxes for a kid to go to school, and you don't even have kids there. You got utility taxes, and I'm talking, I think for our last house that we had, our yearly tax bill for our house was like $14,000.
Yeah.
That's just school tax, county tax, all that.
Well, see, and that's why the county don't want to raise the millage, is because then it's just us paying for it. That's why the sales tax allows everybody else that don't live here to pay for it than just the property owners.
Well, when I got here and I saw the property taxes and just taxes in general, I laugh because
Yeah.
it's so minuscule. It's such a blessing because you can be retired here. Think about that. 13,000. That's roughly $1,000
yeah.
a month. If
Yeah.
my house is paid for, that I'm paying just to live.
Yeah.
And folks here don't have to worry about that.
I've been in City Hall before when, because it's the mayor's position here is a part-time job, but I go down there, try to every day or in after hours or whatever to make sure I go over things. But I was down there one day and somebody from Texas was moving in, and they told them, what's trash service going to cost? And right now we have a contract with LRS, and it's $11.25 a month. And that guy was like, "Are you kidding?" No, I asked about trash. You sure? And April was like, "Yeah, that's what it is because it's on your water bill." And he said, "I'm paying almost $100 for
Yes,
trash."
that's what I'm saying.
You know,
People, good
You
perspective.
just don't realize.
Perspective
Yeah.
helps you appreciate
we're blessed.
how blessed
We're
you
blessed,
are.
and a lot of people don't realize it.
No, my water bill in Katy, because we all were required to keep our yards irrigated and sprinkler systems, because if you didn't, the homeowners and
Yeah.
stuff would come get you. So my water bill in the summer, if you went over a certain gallons used, you would get a penalty that would hit you, and it would double my. So my water bill in the summer would run about $250.
Yeah, see.
It would double it. Because
Mine's like 30.
that's what I'm
Right.
saying.
Yeah,
Folks here,
exactly.
they don't realize it. Another thing people don't realize here is how cheap our electricity is.
Right.
In Texas, man, they had a free market thing, but the prices go up and down. We have very reliable and cheap electricity here. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of built-in blessings that people don't realize we
yeah.
have.
When that's all you know,
That's all you know.
and that's all you know. You don't know
Yeah.
that in Texas, in Katy, Texas, that when you water your water bill was $200.
Yeah.
It's insane.
They
Yeah.
don't know that you pay almost over $1,000 a month
In
in
taxes.
property tax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah, but by golly, we don't have a state income tax. Well, yeah, because they get it from you
They get
everywhere
it.
else.
They
The
get it.
sales tax.
Right.
They're going to get
insane.
their money
Yeah.
regardless.
Yeah.
So I have an idea of what I think some of the accomplishments are, but what do you think is the best accomplishment that you've been able to do since your time as mayor of Atkins? What's something you're real proud of?
We've been able to do several things. It was really about timing because when I ran, of course, when you run, you think I got all these ideas, and then you realize it takes time and it's a lot of money because things are expensive. But it fell perfect because we had to renew that bond, and we were able to do a lot of upgrades on the water system because a lot of things people don't worry. You can't see the water and sewer system.
It's like the jail.
Yeah, nobody cares until if your water don't work in your sink, then they care.
Yeah.
Or the toilet don't flush right. But we upgraded. We had a lot of galvanized pipes still in the line that we replaced. We've got a new meter system. The water guys that work for the city used to have to go out and get in and out of a truck and check every
I
meter.
remember those days.
Every meter.
They'd get out and lift open the thing, then they'd rub the mud off of it to read the
And
gallons.
you think about the wear and tear on their body, the wear and tear on we had one truck door that we had to get just the door fixed. The truck was fine, but the door was falling off.
Opening and closing.
Opening and closing. So one year we got a golf cart and tried to do it with that. But they did it with that for a little bit. But anyway, we got that system put in, and this system is very beneficial to everybody because you can a lot of times if you got a water leak, you don't know it, but they can tell because it'll send an alarm. It'll flag that account and say, hey, they're using a lot more water than usual. So it can save people a lot of money, and it can say, hey, you might have a leak. You need to look. And what people don't realize is you may have a toilet that's running that you don't even realize, but that can cost you a lot of money because that water is continuously running, and that's run up your bill.
Yeah.
And some people don't realize it. But, that stuff was very important because that's infrastructure type stuff. And also with that bond money, we were able to the PBA, this all started, the park and stuff started with ideas from the old timers in the PBA. And I don't remember all of them. Charles May was one of them. and some other guys, they had always talked about putting a park by the Matthews Center. Well, we decided to dedicate some of that money to parks. So and our pool was in bad. I mean, that pool was there when me and you were little.
Right.
I used to walk down to the pool, and there was matter of fact, when we refurbished it, we renovated it, there was a payphone still on the wall on the outside of that building.
Oh man, that's straight history right there, man.
But we, with that money, when we did the splash pad, we applied for a grant too, as a matching grant. That park was just over $500,000. The grant gave us $250,000, which with the bond money, we had the money to pay for the park, but that money allowed us to go ahead and replace all the lights at the baseball field with metal poles, because they still the old wood poles that have been there forever. So we were able to do that and completely renovate the pool, things like that. And
I know the splash pad it's a huge hit.
To me, the splash pad's money.
Yeah.
Constantly in the summertime,
Yeah.
even up until it got super cold, there was somebody always there.
There's a lot of kids that love it, and that is something. You had people with different. Why we don't need that. Well, I mean, at some point you can just stop doing anything. I mean, what are you supposed to do? You just stop and never do anything new. That keeps people in town. They don't go up to the one in Russellville sometimes. It keeps them here. And that pool, nobody wants to get rid of the pool. It don't make a lot of money. We make enough to operate it.
Right.
But it's, we got the new building and it stays busy. Some days there's not a lot of people there, but nobody wants to shut it down. So we were able to renovate it, and
I know, for me and my daughter, especially when she was younger, she'd go to the pool, and her grandma would take her because we were working, and a lot of times her grandma, if she had to go to Russellville, she wouldn't have went to the pool because her grandma couldn't take her to Russellville.
Right.
And like you said, it keeps people
them
in
here.
town and keeps kids Brooklyn wouldn't have been able to go to a pool if we wouldn't have had one here.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I think, again, maybe small town folks don't realize it, but parks are how you reinvest into the city, and you're increasing the quality of life. Like I remember the first time I rolled into town, it looked nice. It was well built. Gracie started pointing at it, so we had to go to the splash pad.
Right.
And then that civic center, I know that's not connected. Is that connected to the city or not? Yeah. It's been redone. Looks beautiful.
Yeah,
Love all the old school rocks on there.
Yeah. We had to, that's been there that is an old building, and we had to redo the front on it this past year. The front of it, when it was built years ago, it's almost like they built a shell around the building back then, but the front of it was kind of leaning. And so when you find something like that out, you can't leave it because it's unsafe. So we put the new front on it. But yeah, we have, due to district court, city court, for tickets and everything getting so big, we have our courts there also. It's held in that building.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because our meeting room for the city council just isn't big enough for everybody that has to go to court.
Right. So
we use that for that.
Was the sign, the digital sign, was that included in that?
No, that was different. When one thing that allowed us to do a bunch of other stuff, including that sign, was when they gave the rescue funds out.
Rescue.
Biden did the rescue funds.
Okay.
Oh, the
sent to all
infrastructure?
the cities for infrastructure. We had talked about that idea from a sign was brought up by several different citizens, and when we first got that sign, and I would get people, why can't we put this up there or announce this? Well, unfortunately, we live in a day and time to where we can only put city business up there, because if I advertise for a church for an event, then if somebody with the Church of Satan or Church of whatever calls, I've got to put theirs up there. So you got to be careful what you put up there. I would love to put whatever, everybody's birthday, but you can't do that.
Yes.
You just can't do stuff like that anymore.
I think it's a nice touch.
Me too. I love it.
In the city, especially when you're going through downtown, you see the new splash pad, you see the new sign. It just looks good.
Put when meetings are, because there's no paper, and we, at least now people, I don't know when the city council it was. We put it on the sign now.
Right.
You put stuff on Facebook. I can't stand that stuff. I'm just going to tell you on here now.
All the comments and stuff.
Yeah, obviously in the city, our city, there's not a lot of politicians. I'm not a politician. I'm just a kid that grew up here. And I would hope a lot of people may not know me, but I grew up here. And if there was money to replace every sidewalk, it had already been done.
Right.
If there was money to do whatever, me and the city council, all the city council, you got people that's been on there for many years. You got a farmer, you got a welder, you got a guy that retired from UPS. You got a guy that retired from ConAgra. There's just people that are in the town that care to help make decisions. Essentially, nobody else in our positions could do anything different. You can only spend the money on certain things.
Well, think about
We're
it.
audited by the state every year, and we don't have any hits. We spend the money correctly, and we try to be conservative because you don't need to overspend. We've got a dump truck that's over 20 years old that we still operate. You try to do what you can.
Like that splash pad without getting a grant. Was it a grant?
Yeah,
That
and
is
the bond money.
That's
it wouldn't
grant
happen.
and bond. That's half your entire city budget
Yeah,
just for a splash pad. That's how expensive everything is.
yeah.
Now, I did see some cool stuff too. I followed the fire truck build.
Oh yeah,
Y'all got a new fire truck, I think, a couple years ago.
right.
And then I saw, you can tell us a little about that. And then I saw you got a new brush truck.
Yeah.
And was that donated?
No, the paint job was.
The paint job was?
Shelby.
What's Shelby?
He does big trucks, paints, and does all kinds of stuff. It's down there. I can't remember the street. It's just down from the PD. It used to be Warren's Hauling, his building.
Okay.
That Carl Warren had down there, but he does paint jobs and stuff, and he donated the paint, and he even repainted the front with the rhino liner type deal, the brush guard.
Yeah.
And he donated the whole job. But the fire truck, well before my time, the city's always been good about thinking ahead. So way before my time, for a long time, they put $3,000 a month in a account that was just for fire trucks. So they had that built up quite a bit, and that, along with those rescue funds, allowed us to buy the fire truck, because that fire truck was over $500,000.
Half your city's budget in a year.
Without
for one
those
fire
extra
truck.
funds, and the city, the council before me, nothing's just me making decisions. The council's involved, and the mayor before me, they had been saving, because those fire trucks, and to keep up that ISO rating, you got to keep new equipment. There goes the plane.
C-130 buzzing us.
So we were able to buy it, But like right now, this week, myself, Chief Cheek, and Seth Cochran been working with the county grant administrator. They need new tanks, Scott Air Packs, that they go in the fires with. Their system's getting to where it's obsolete like everything else. Well, we can't get parts. To replace one for every fireman and to get the system to fill the tanks, it's over $400,000. So we're applying for a FEMA grant right now. If we don't get the grant, we'll have to buy the filling station, which is about $58,000, and then slowly start buying because the pieces are probably $8,000 per person.
Gosh.
It's expensive.
It's so expensive. I know.
And, that leads into, you talk about other things like splash pad. The tennis courts is a big topic. The school has to use it. I mean, those are the tennis courts I played on when I played.
Yeah, you played tennis.
I played tennis, went to state. We got down there with people that actually took lessons and got whooped.
Yeah.
But we could play people around here. We got down there. We had one racket from Walmart. These guys had a bag with 5, and we got whooped. But now you can't play a good match on them. But I've had 3 different companies look at it, and it needs to be tore up and be $500,000 to replace them. So how can I justify using city funds for that and not get the tanks for the firemen? That don't make sense. So your hands are kind of tied. You hope for a grant, but a lot of the grants that are full grants, like 100%, there's what you call low to moderate income rate. And to get a lot of grants, you have to be at 51%. And I don't know what that is per household, what income they set that off of, but it has to do with the census they do. Atkins is at 42%. So we make too much money around here to get some of the grants. Isn't that crazy?
That is insane.
It is insane.
But we do.
Really.
We make too much money around here, so we're at 42%. A lot of the grants are at 51. So
Do y'all have a grant writer?
no, we use it's called West Central Planning and Development. You kind of keep them on retainer, and that's who I used for.
Okay.
That's who we used for like the park grant. But luckily, the county judge hired a county grant administrator, and she's the one helping us with that right now.
See, that's something else I learned as we applied for grants. You have to have somebody who specializes in grants because it has to be, the wording has to be a certain
Oh, especially
thing.
the federal ones.
Yeah, and then the federal one always
There's even
comes
stuff
with
in there.
strings.
We're just buying tanks for firemen, but there's stuff in there you got to sign to make sure no pets were harmed during this.
Yes.
Don't lose lead-based paint. And I'm like,
Yes. All
but
these
it's
strings.
stuff you don't even think of.
Yeah.
Pages of it.
You used to be a volunteer
Yeah, I was
firefighter.
gonna say, as a former firefighter here in Atkins, like it seemed we always had great equipment.
Oh yeah, they do.
It seemed like we
they've
had
had
top
a
of
great
the
fire
line,
department well before me.
trucks and-
They had a lot of the old guys that were there, along with Cheek and some of the other ones. They got together at some point and said they wanted to get that ISO rating up, and they did, and that saves the citizens money on insurance.
and they don't even
stuff.
know it. They don't
Yeah.
even know about ISO and response
And you got to keep up the
times.
training and your equipment to keep that rating.
Yeah.
And it's important to have it.
They do a really, really
Yeah.
good job. I know.
And all those guys
Chuck
have
and
full-time
Chad now,
jobs.
yeah,
Yeah.
they do a great
Yeah,
job.
your preacher.
Yeah.
He's been there for a long time.
Long time.
Yeah.
See, I think that's, again, one of the things I love. Our fire department has always been good. Always, and like you said, always had good equipment. I just think that's one of the neat things about a small town, you know,
Right.
because you want to talk about the city saving the city money. A volunteer fire department, people sacrificing their time, not getting paid. I mean, yeah, they get paid for a call out. It ain't much.
Right.
Saves the city massive amounts of money.
Yeah.
In Pasadena, we had either the largest or the second largest so the city is 150,000, and it was all volunteer fire department
That's crazy.
with like,
You'd think they'd have a full-time.
so they have like excellent equipment. They have like 8 stations, and the only reason they're able to do that is because most residents are plant workers, and a lot of those plant workers shift work. They're firemen.
Yeah.
People don't realize that down there, like if there's a plant fire, it's the plant's fire department that fights the fire.
Right.
So they're already certified within the plant. But we would not have been paid as well as we were, or we got paid, if we had to pay for a full, like Russellville having to pay for a full-time
Right.
fire department. Buddy, you don't understand the budget crunch.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking total destruction.
Oh yeah.
And so having that volunteer fire department enabled them
Big
to
deal.
have a lot of money left over.
Yeah.
How many do you know how many off the top of your head, how many you
I
have?
think a little over 30.
Awesome.
That's how many tanks we're looking at, you know, and then sometimes you're shorthanded because you don't have as many volunteers because it's just, you don't have as many people. People are busy and not as many people volunteer as they used to
No,
for anything.
No, that's
That's true,
nationwide.
yeah.
Everywhere.
That you see that in churches, you
Yes.
see it in public service. You just see it everywhere.
What I want to, and it's okay if we go a little longer because this is a great combo. We typically do an hour. Where are we at? It's a great combo.
We are
so-
at an hour and 20.
We're good. It's a great combo. Just 2 more things I want to cover. I want to finish with your Christian journey. That's
Yeah.
the last thing. But before we get to that, I want to cover the PD because one of the neat things I saw from a distance being out of state was we kind of, and I may be wrong on this, I felt like growing up we had a bare bones police department. I mean, what do we have, 3 people?
I think when me and you were in school,
Yeah.
3 or 4 maybe.
And-
And I think some guys work part-time from the county maybe.
Yeah,
but
and I don't know
remember.
how you even cover the city. And then what I've noticed through the years is it's grown. It's more professional.
Yeah.
They look like they have good equipment.
Yeah.
So how many police officers we got now?
9.
That's
I think
insane.
That's right.
That's
9.
awesome.
9. 2 of them. We have 2 at the school. That happened before I came into office. when they started the SRO program.
Do you have to pay for that out
No,
of the
the
budget?
school pays for it.
Okay, that's what I'm saying.
We pay it and they reimburse us basically.
See, that was one of the weird things when I went to Texas. I was like, school police? Yeah.
Yeah.
They have so we had Pasadena Police Department. Well, then there's Pasadena School District Police. And they're everywhere in Houston, all over Texas.
Right.
An entire police department, and their only job is the high schools. Now, with that said, there's 3 massive high schools, 15 junior highs, and 30 elementaries.
Right,
and they're covering all that.
that.
It's kind of also neat that I come back and little old Atkins got two cops. So that's cool. And you're, how long's your chief been there? Isn't it Pack? What's his name?
Yeah, Pack. He's. I'm trying to remember when he left the county. We worked together in criminal investigation at the county. We started in the jail together. He was there maybe a month or so before me, but he worked the county for several years and then went down there probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 before I became mayor, or maybe longer than that. You know, you get old and you can't remember.
I'm with you, brother.
It's just crazy.
I'm with you.
But we have a great chief. He's a great guy, very level-headed, and runs a good department.
Makes your life a lot easier, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, the best thing you can do is have good leaders, and then you don't have to do anything. I don't get involved at all. I don't bother them at all. Yeah, same with the fire department. I don't bother Cheek and them at all. If they have a question, they come to me obviously, but I don't get involved because I don't want to be a micromanager. You know, I let them know how the budget works and what we expect, but they run it.
That's awesome.
They're in their position for a reason.
Yeah, they're in their position for a reason. I can't. I work full time at the sheriff's office. I'm over all that.
Right.
Now, if it was a full time job at Atkins, I could be more out in the community and doing more things, but it's not.
Well, that's the beauty of the small town world. You got
Right.
volunteer fire department, you got volunteer council members, you got volunteer mayor, basically.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the neat things about small towns. But we want to close with like your Christian journey. I'd like to hear how it was for you. Mm-hmm. Like mine, I just kind of was, like that. I've talked before about it. Just went to church on holidays.
Right.
How were you raised?
Was there a defining moment where you're like,
yeah, was there a defining moment?
I need God in my life.
I was raised. We went to church every Sunday, whether I wanted to or not. And
I think all of us.
As a kid, like you didn't want to go. Yeah, I didn't want to go.
I'd rather slept in or something.
Me too.
But we went to First Baptist here in Atkins, and when it was the old building, I don't know if y'all remember that. It was tore down, and
the one by the ball fields.
Yeah, it was tore down, and they've got the gymnasium type building in there now. But I went there. My grandpa went there. Everybody went there, and I remember I was probably in this. I don't know. I don't remember what grade I was in. Probably 3rd or 4th, and I was at Vacation Bible School, and I remember specifically sitting in the pew and when I was saved. I remember that, and I ever since then, I've always kept it in the back of my head that I'm a Christian. Now, I went to church till I left for the Navy. You get out you go to the Navy or you go in the military. It's just a lazy excuse, but it's just not the same. You're not. You go to the chapel on base, and you're just there with a bunch. It's not a. Church to me was a family feeling or something, but
almost like you're just going through the motions.
Yeah. I would go there, and in boot camp, you went to church because you get the rest.
Right.
It may have been a Catholic service, but I'm just there.
Same here.
Just sitting there, man.
It was your only break.
Yeah, they can't yell at you in there.
Yes.
You sit there. Now everybody's just looking forward, but you was just there not thinking.
Yes.
For an hour.
Yep.
And just making sure you didn't fall asleep. They'd get you if you fell asleep.
Right.
So then you go. I'd spend a lot of time traveling out at sea, and I always had my Bible in that little rack with me, and I'd read a verse every night. And then we'd go to port. I'd go out and drink. I can honestly, I've never done any drugs. I did drink when I was in the Navy. And I'd get back to my rack when we'd leave, and I'd be like, why'd I do that? And I'd read some Bible verses, say, I'm going to do better. And then we'd get to another port, and I'd go out and do it again. But I always had conviction for anything
Sure.
bad I did.
Right.
You know, and I can honestly, you know, I've never done anything that bad, but I did fall away when I was gone. And then me and Nicole, we didn't go much. She was raised in as a Catholic, and she would tell you herself, her dad made them go, but then he was a terrible person at home.
Right.
They don't talk. He's never been in our life, and never
and that,
will be.
That doesn't
Wasn't
help.
a good guy.
Yeah, and that
Doesn't help with her journey.
I was
That
going
makes
to say
it
with her
worse.
journey, that makes her
Probably
journey
makes it
tough.
worse.
So we moved back and didn't go for a while, and then we started going where my mom and them went. And, you know, you get the feeling, I need to be with my family all the time, and so I got involved with the youth. Me and Nicole did. My kids were still little, but I got involved helping the youth pastor, and we would go to Siloam Springs every summer and do church camp, and I started teaching some youth classes, and Nicole helped me. We'd go out there and bring our kids when they were little, and then I got a little involved in church business. I found I didn't like it, and I
It's
got
not
to a
for
point
everybody.
where
And
it was
people don't realize that
Yeah.
it is a business.
yeah,
It
it is.
It has
and
to be.
Decisions have to be made, and I got to where the youth pastor left. He wanted to be a preacher, but then he left, and I was kind of in that spot. I think something needs to change. And then the preacher asked me to be a deacon, and for some reason that was my time. I got to get out of here. So me and Nicole went to searching, and we ended up moving to Oak Grove. And nothing against anybody there. It's just time for us to make a change. No fights or no church drama. It was just time for me to make a change. Everybody I went to church with is who I grew up around as a kid, you know. So we went out there and the same. Got involved with church camps, teaching and everything. And we went out there. I'm trying to remember how many years. We went out there till about a year ago. But out there got involved in youth. You know, and when we moved back and everything, we finally got comfortable in that church, and I became a deacon there at Oak Grove Free Will Baptist. And it's funny because I was going to Baptist, and they were like, well, don't they believe different? I said, well, you know, somebody say, once saved, always saved, right? And then some say you can fall out, right? I would talk to some of the older ones at the church I used to go to, and I said, it's just the same, you're saying it different, because they may say when I was going down there growing up, well, he wasn't ever really saved. Well, I said, that's the same as saying they're falling out. I mean, you're just wording it different. That's our words.
Right.
That's how I saw it. But anyway, went out there and was a deacon and enjoyed it. And then in 2018, and you know, you look back on stuff, and I'll get to that after a second. I hope we're not going too long.
You're fine,
you're fine.
buddy.
But,
It's good convo.
This and I may get choked up here in a minute, but in 2018, my mom died, and about 2 years that time frame, my mom, grandpa, grandma, both grandmas, they died, and I didn't quit going to church, but I was still a deacon, and I got to sitting there in church, and I was thinking, because everybody was gone, you know, you spend your life trying to impress your parents and all this stuff, and then you spend your life and I started sitting there thinking, am I doing this for me or for other people? And I just started thinking, maybe I don't need to be a deacon right now, because I didn't have the want to go to the hospital or go talk with anybody.
Because you're emotional.
Yeah.
Not only are you a cop,
Yeah.
but your ability to help people emotionally
Yeah.
and plus losing all the people you love.
Yeah.
You got nothing left
Yeah.
to give.
Nothing to give.
No,
Yeah, nothing to
exactly.
give.
So I met with some of the deacons. I said, look, I'm not going crazy. I'm not going on a bender. I just don't think I need to do this anymore. I'm not going to be a deacon right now. And we had started, Brother Mark had started, we called them acorn groups, and we would have small home groups and I taught one of those at my house. We would do Bible study at the house and started doing that. And then anyway, time went on, and we decided it was time then to move. Now I'm out at Hector First Assembly, and we're about to become members there.
That's
It's
a
just
good
weird
drive.
that, yeah.
That's a good little drive up there.
I went out there. Brian Martin had invited me out there. He started going out there, and I went out there and met with Shannon Pruitt. I don't know if y'all know him. He's a preacher out there. He's about my age, and heard his story. He spent 12 years in Ecuador as a missionary.
Oh,
and
wow.
when he said that, I thought, Rowdy, you ain't worth it. You're lazy. You know, I mean, I just still can't fathom he spent 12 years of his life over there being a missionary, living over there. But anyway,
That's wild.
you know, my Christian journey is not real exciting, but you fall in and out, and then you reflect on, why was I doing all this stuff? I guess everybody passing away made me think of that, and I had to dig deeper within myself to figure out why I wanted to be a deacon at the time. Because, you know, so they say once you're a deacon, you're always a deacon. But I just don't think that's a fit for me anymore. I can get up and talk to people about anything. I'm horrible at memorizing Bible verses and remembering where something is, you know. But you get, like Brian Martin, he can remember stuff like that.
That's him.
He can do it. He'll know right where it is.
I don't feel adequate.
I don't either.
But that's why, like, if you look at, it's a body of Christ.
Right.
So like, Brian can remember that stuff. That's the arm. You're good
Yeah.
at something else, so you're the foot. You're good at something else, so you're the big toe.
That's right.
I'm good at something else, so I might be the ear.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
We don't have to do it all.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool that you said that, because I think even in my story, I come to a place about 4 or 5 years ago where I had to ask myself those same questions.
Yeah.
Why am I doing this, for me
Yeah.
or for my wife and my parents, my grandparents
Yeah.
that passed on? Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And when you find that out,
Yeah.
it's a good thing.
You've definitely got to do it for yourself first, because the only thing that matters in the end is your relationship with the Lord.
Your wife ain't gonna be there holding
No.
your hand. Your mom,
And,
your dad.
and you're going to go through life, and you're going to think you found your group that you're going to spend your life with. I thought that at First Baptist, and we didn't have any fights. There was nothing that made us leave. It was just time for something else. But the weird thing is, the people that I went to First Baptist with, I never see or hear from. It's not their fault or mine. It's just our lives are different.
Right.
Those at Oak Grove, I don't ever see.
Right.
And those are people we raised kids with each other, and we went to church camps with each other. But we don't ever see each other anymore.
Right.
So
You're
it's
at different
crazy.
places in your life
Yeah.
now, you know.
Yeah. So if you hinge on just those relationships with those people for your Christian walk, you're going to fail, because you can't get it from. You got to have your core group. I can tell you one person that's always. Well, Brian invited me to Oak Grove when I first came back, and Brian invited me to Hector First Assembly. So he's one that I've always kind of contacted with in church. But it's just weird, and I've just been thinking about that lately. It's weird how you have friends that you just don't see, and your life was so close. Like I was telling Parker the other day, my son over in the UK, because he misses his friends. He's over in the UK in London, misses his friends. And I said, son, you're just going through a time right now where you're doing something different. I said, and I told him, I said, me and Mike Norman, when I graduated in 92, and I left. And I only left because I didn't know what I wanted to do. My son said, you had it all figured out. I said, I have nothing figured out. That's why I said, I didn't want to go to college at the time. I was ready to get out. I was going to do something, so I left. And we hadn't seen each other since then, hardly. If we happened to be in town, maybe. But then, you know, I moved back here, and he's still in Texas. But now, me and him will go eat lunch every now and then. It's just like the same.
It's like you picked up where you left off.
Yeah.
It's in that, and it just picks right back up.
Right.
It's awesome.
Right.
You know, I was thinking about too. One of the things I wanted to mention was your mom, because your mom was always. I know she passed away from cancer.
Yeah.
And she was always the biggest hugger in the world.
Yeah.
And always super duper friendly to me. And then your grandpa, being a state trooper, was like a god to me.
Right.
Because he was the man. I remember as kids, we go to his house
Yeah.
out there on 64.
Yeah.
And so he was always a big figure in my life. And I'll just tell you a funny story. I think I probably told it to you before, Rowdy. But my dad, this is the old school policing ways.
Right.
My dad was out raising Cain back in the day, out in the bottoms, wherever. He might have been driving drunk, who knows. And Luter was patrolling the area, your grandpa, state trooper, whipped his ass, and then took him home. Yeah. He didn't go to jail. And then I don't know if it was the same trip or another trip, my dad was in the back of Luter's car, and they came up on a wreck, and my dad or Doug, I can't remember, it was one of the two, directing traffic for him at an accident.
Right.
And I was like, man, that is some great.
It's a different world back
That's
then.
My dad?
I don't. It was either my dad or your dad.
Yeah, funny.
Because there's stories they told them, and I
Oh,
can't if they're merging, but that's old school policing, man.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know what? My dad didn't have a criminal record. He had his butt kicked.
Yeah.
And it straightened him out. So that's good stuff right there, man. So that's a good one to close on.
Yeah, Rowdy, man, we thank you for coming on.
I appreciate it.
For real.
It's been a good time.
Rowdy's been a faithful listener to the podcast since we started almost a year ago.
Yep.
Yeah. I've
be
seen
our-
every one.
This will be our 42nd episode right here.
When I love it too that we got some good local information for people here talking about something local.
It's awesome.
So I enjoyed the conversation a lot.
I want to pray us out of here. Definitely, Father, Lord, I thank you for this day, Lord. I thank you for Rowdy and all he does for Atkins and Pope County. I pray a special prayer for him. I pray you continue to lead him, guide him in all his leadership roles, help him to make the right decisions for the people, and continue to lead and guide us all by your Holy Spirit. We love you and we praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you for listening to the Life After Sunday podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Please give us a like and a comment, and go follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble. And as always, keep fighting the good fight.